Hashtag the accountant who wrote a war manual. Most people encountering Sun Tzu encounter a caricature. They meet the patron saint of corporate strategy retreats, the ancient sage plastered across motivational posters, the mystic who supposedly decoded the hidden patterns of human conflict. This version is comforting because it makes warfare seem like a puzzle you can solve with the right mindset. But it's completely wrong. Sun Tzu wasn't writing about how to achieve glory on the battlefield. He was writing about how to avoid dying in the counting house. His masterwork, The Art of War, is treated as a meditation on tactics and psychology. In reality, it's a treatise on national solvency. Strip away the elegant phrasing, and what remains is something closer to a budget proposal than a battle plan. Sun Tzu's central preoccupation wasn't defeating enemies. It was preventing rulers from destroying their own states through fiscal recklessness disguised as military ambition. Once you recognize this, the entire text transforms. It stops reading like ancient wisdom and starts reading like a warning from someone who watched kingdoms collapse under their own war debts. The world that bred an economic strategist, Sun Tzu, emerged during China's late spring and autumn period, transitioning into the Warring States era, roughly the 6th and 5th centuries BCE. This wasn't a stable civilization, punctuated by occasional skirmishes. It was a geopolitical catastrophe in slow motion. The old order had shattered into dozens of competing kingdoms, each convinced it could reunify the realm through force, and each bleeding itself, white trying. Warfare had evolved from ritualized aristocratic encounters into something unrecognizable. Armies now numbered in the tens of thousands. Campaigns stretched across seasons, sometimes years. States minted standardized currency and reorganized tax systems whose primary function was feeding the war machine. This was industrialized conflict before industrialization, and it was unsustainable. Every time a ruler mobilized an army, he triggered a cascading economic crisis. Fields went untended because farmers were conscripted. Supply chains stretched across hostile terrain. Wagons, weapons, armor, food, all required upfront capital with no guarantee of return. Small states couldn't afford a single extended campaign. Large states could afford several, but each one weakened them for the next. The system was locked in a death spiral. Insecurity bred aggression. Aggression bred cost. Cost bred instability. And the cycle continued until something broke. Sun Tzu wasn't theorizing from safety. He was solving an immediate problem. How do you wage war without destroying the state waging it? His answer was radical. You treat war as a liability, not an asset. You minimize exposure. You avoid fighting whenever possible. And when you must fight, you do it as quickly and cheaply as you can. This wasn't pacifism. It was accounting. War as a line item. The opening of The Art of War declares, war is a matter of vital importance to the state. Most readers interpret this as emphasizing war's significance. But Sun Tzu's actual meaning is darker. He's saying war is dangerous, not to the enemy, but to you. It's a force that can destroy the society it claims to protect. Everything that follows is an attempt to contain that danger. He identifies 5 fundamental factors that determine outcomes: the moral law, heaven, earth, the commander, and method and discipline. Reread through an economic lens and they reveal themselves as cost variables. Sun Tzu is asking, what does this conflict require? How stable is your political base? How favorable is the environment? How competent is your leadership? How efficient is your administration? He's performing a risk assessment. Then he moves into logistics, and his real obsession becomes undeniable. He calculates the cost of moving armies, the expense of transporting grain, the economic damage of pulling laborers from production. He warns that supply chains are more dangerous than enemy forces. That distance multiplies cost exponentially. That occupying foreign territory drains wealth faster than conquest can replenish it. One line captures his worldview. One who uses the enemy's provisions is worth 20 of his own. This isn't tactical advice, it's a statement about capital preservation. Fight using the opponent's resources to protect the home economy. Every measure of grain transported from your own granaries is wealth lost. Every soldier fed from enemy stores is wealth preserved. He treats battles the way a modern CFO treats capital expenditures, necessary evils to be minimized wherever possible. Intelligence as the cheapest weapon. Sun Tzu's emphasis on intelligence is often framed as information superiority. But his actual argument is simpler. Intelligence is cheap, and armies are expensive. A single spy can prevent an entire campaign from marching into disaster. One intercepted message can save a state from a war it cannot afford. Sun Tzu writes that foreknowledge, his term for actionable intelligence, separates successful rulers from failed ones. Not bravery, not righteousness. Data. Most military thinking glorified courage and direct confrontation. Sun Tzu is saying, skip all that if you can. Invest in knowing what your enemy will do before they do it. Shape the conflict before it begins. Win through information asymmetry rather than resource depletion. Every dollar spent on intelligence is a dollar not spent replacing casualties. This is cold optimization, and Sun Tzu never apologizes for it. Speed as cost reduction. Speed is the essence of war is one of his most famous lines, and it's almost always misunderstood. People read it as a call for aggressive action, but Sun Tzu's real point is financial. Speed lowers cost. Every day an army spends in the field accrues expenses. Soldiers eat, horses eat, equipment degrades. The longer a campaign drags on, the more it drains state capacity. Speed doesn't just improve tactical outcomes, it reduces financial exposure. When Sun Tzu praises maneuver over attrition, he's being practical. Attrition burns through resources. Maneuver conserves them. A campaign won through deception costs less than one won through siege. A victory achieved in 3 weeks preserves more national strength than one achieved in 3 years. The obsession with flexibility and psychological warfare isn't about elegance. It's about efficiency. The ultimate insight, opportunity cost. Sun Tzu's deepest financial principle runs through the entire text. Every decision forecloses alternatives. Every battle fought is resources not spent elsewhere. Every prolonged campaign is wealth that will never return. This is the logic of opportunity cost, centuries before economists formalized the concept. Sun Tzu doesn't oppose war. He opposes waste. And the ultimate waste is fighting battles that didn't need to happen. That's why he praises commanders who win through intimidation, diplomacy, or misdirection. These aren't lesser victories. They're superior ones because they preserve state capacity. His most quoted line, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting," isn't mysticism. It's the logical endpoint of his economic reasoning. If you can achieve your objective without deploying armies, you've avoided the single largest expense a state can incur. The modern echo. Sun Tzu's warnings didn't stay buried in ancient China. They've echoed through every major conflict of the modern age. The Soviet Union in Afghanistan, the United States in Vietnam and Iraq, imperial powers in World War I. These weren't military defeats in the traditional sense. They were financial collapses disguised as strategic failures. The wars lasted too long, cost too much, and eroded state capacity faster than any external enemy could. Meanwhile, the strategies Sun Tzu championed, intelligence operations, cyber warfare, economic sanctions, proxy conflicts, have become the foundation of modern statecraft, precisely because they're cheaper than conventional war. Great powers still operate inside his framework, whether they acknowledge it or not. The deepest lesson: Sun Tzu wasn't teaching rulers how to win wars. He was teaching them how to avoid bankruptcy. His genius was recognizing that the cost of conflict outlasts the conflict itself. States don't fail because they lose battles. They fail because they exhaust the resources that sustain coherence and continuity. Victory is meaningless if the treasury collapses afterward. The philosophy of the steward. What emerges from the art of war isn't the philosophy of a warrior. It's the philosophy of a steward, someone responsible for preserving the long-term viability of the state. Sun Tzu doesn't glorify conquest. He glorifies restraint. He doesn't celebrate aggression. He celebrates calculation. To him, the ruler who preserves resources is wiser than the ruler who conquers cities. The general who avoids fighting is wiser than the general who destroys armies. His final message is simple and unsettling. Strength isn't measured by how hard you can strike. It's measured by how much you can afford to strike. And when financial systems collide, it isn't the bravest nation that survives. It's the most economically disciplined. History doesn't repeat itself, but if you ignore its lessons, it'll bankrupt you all the same.